Hi guys, well I saw Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter last night. I have to say overall I was disappointed in the film. There are some good moments in it, but overall I found the movie quite forgettable. I'll mention some good things. I found that Benjamin Walker, who played Abraham Lincoln, was a very good actor. For 2/3 of the movie, he coped well when playing the young Abraham Lincoln. And I think the later part of the movie where he actually becomes the older Abraham Lincoln is where he suffers. That's not necessarily his fault. I think that's to do with the storyline, which I'll go into a little bit later on. But he does come across as kind of a young Liam Neeson with a little bit of Colin Firth mixed in there for good measure, and I enjoyed his performance for most part of the movie. Dominic Cooper was very good in this. I always enjoy watching him. He was good as Howard Stark in Captain America, and he was very good playing dual roles in The Devil's Double. The rest of the supporting cast were a little bit weak, to be honest with you. They were around for most part of the movie, but I really didn't feel any connection to them, and their characters weren't that well developed. Not even Abraham Lincoln's wife was that much of a sympathetic character, although Elizabeth Winstead, did the best she could with what she was given. The director, Timur Bekmambetov, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's probably wrong. He did the film Wanted, and he is also known for the Russian movie Night Watch. Once again, in this, his usual fingerprints are over it, especially in the action scenes. Very similar to Zack Snyder, where you get a bit of action and then he slows it down, and then the action speeds up again. When he does that, though, it's normally quite effective. He doesn't totally overuse it, and the action scenes in the film are quite enjoyable, especially the finale action scene on the train, and that's another good part of the film. Where the film falls apart, unfortunately, is the editing and the actual storytelling itself. I think you end up watching the film, either wanting to see a vampire film, or you want to see. I actually sat there thinking I'd rather have actually watched a film about Abraham Lincoln's life. Watch a Blade film or a film about Abraham Lincoln, trying to mesh the two together. While it sounds like a crazy idea that might work, it doesn't really. It doesn't really quite mesh the two together. I think the best thing they would have done if they'd have done a story about a young Abraham Lincoln, and this is where the actor Benjamin Walker was better at when he played a young Abraham Lincoln. If they had done that and then made him president, ended the story where he became president, that would have been better. But they wanted to do a story where Abraham Lincoln fights vampires all the way through his life. So you're actually getting the story of him becoming president, and he's actually having to deal with vampires at that same time, and it doesn't really mesh together very well. So that was disappointing. Also, storytelling seems to jump all over the place, and there's certain things that aren't explained. Vampires walk around in the daylight. I mean, that's fair enough. They're different to normal vampires. Abraham Lincoln is trained to be a vampire killer, and he's taught how to chop a tree down with one chop, and he somehow possesses this superpower in doing it. It's kind of explained that truth is power, but it's not really a very good explanation to explain how he's suddenly able to chop down massive trees, because I'm sure there's other people out in the world, if that was the case, that would have superpowers because of having the power of truth or whatever. It was a really poor way of explaining how he could fight vampires. The actual timeline keeping of this film is terrible. That's the problem with the editing. It jumps from year to year. You're not really sure when it's jumped exactly. You kind of have to readjust yourself while you're watching it, going, hang on, I don't think this is in the same time period now. You're kind of confused by that. So he'll be fighting, learning to fight with Dominic Cooper, and then it will jump to another scene, and it's 5 years later, and you don't really realise that until you've been watching the scene for a few minutes. You're like, oh, hang on, this isn't the same time period now. He's got a lot better at being a vampire hunter. And there's lots of parts of the story where they're trying to develop character, and it just drags the movie down. The bad guy, the bad vampire played by Rufus Sewell, doesn't really do much. He just goes around being a boo-hiss baddie. There's not really much to him to really be interested. I mean, you've got to be interested in the villains in this to care for, when they're fighting the hero. You've got to care about both sides, invested in both sides to really want to see a successful outcome when he beats the main bad guy, and you don't really have that in this film. So I would have to say, with the action scenes and everything, and the vampire hunting, and some good performances, it's fairly worth going to see it seeing it rental, or maybe catching a cheap showing at the cinema. But I wouldn't pay full price. The 3D is okay. You've got little particles floating in front of the screen. You've got little fire embers that look cool in certain scenes, all floating around. But the 3D overall is not worth paying the extra for. Out of 5 stars, I'd probably have to give it 2.5. I'd give it 2.5 for the action, and for the central performance, which was good. As when he played a young Abraham Lincoln, he definitely struggled playing an older Abraham Lincoln. It didn't really feel realistic enough. I think it tried to take itself too seriously in something that really is a silly thing, really. If you consider that Abraham Lincoln's a vampire hunter, there should have been more comedy in it, and I think the problem was it took itself too seriously as well. So overall disappointing, but worth catching if you've had a few beers and you fancy just going to see some good action for 2 hours. I'll catch you later.